The most important thing in making your ads and your funnels profitable is not your ads, not your funnel, not your copy, not your email, text, sales process, or even how you conduct the sales calls. It's actually the data. And the reason being is if you have the data and you understand how to read the data, what the data is telling you, and then how to fix data at a high scale where you don't get small incremental growth, you get exponential growth, then you're able to make very profitable ads, very profitable funnels, and scale up very fast. So I'm going to give you an example of how we're doing this with one of our clients right now. They're currently spending about $300 a day actively, like as of today. And our goal is to scale that funnel to 50K, 100K, 150, 200K a month. And I'm going to explain our process for doing that. So to give you some context, last month we spent about $4,000. We did scale up the ad spend because it was profitable, but I don't think it's scalable yet. So I wanted to spend a bit more because we do have a 3x ROAS. It was profitable, so I do want to spend more. But before we continue scaling, I wanted to go in and actually optimize some of it. I have another video where I explain how we come to the conclusion of what we should be paying for a client, what the revenue is, what the profit should be, all that kind of stuff. So if you have questions on that, go ahead and watch that video. So the initial diagnosis and what we saw, we did have this one solid close come through, this $12,000 in revenue, but that person came in pre-sold after their own research. So the funnel didn't do the heavy lifting. We were able to actually track what they had done, and they came in through the funnel. They booked a call, then they went to the website and they actually downloaded an ebook that we created for our client. And they got that ebook, and the purpose of that ebook is to sell people on the solution, on the process, on the strategy, how the client I'm working with actually helps people get the outcome that they're looking for, that he promises, and why it's different and more unique than anything else. So then when they got on the call, they were actually excited to be there, and they said, literally word for word, they said, "Hey, we really love what you guys do. I think it's exactly what we're looking for. We just want to learn more about how it could work for us specifically." That's the kind of conversation you want to have on sales calls compared to a lot of the other conversations we're having where people are like, "Yeah, I'm curious," or sometimes even like, "What do you guys do again? Like, why are we here exactly?" That's not what we want. What we want is someone in the buyer's mindset, not an education mindset. So our approach now is, okay, let's go ahead and reverse engineer the buyer journey of the person that actually converted and showed up to the call the right way. So now we got to take that PDF and ebook that they saw, get that type of information, bring it forward in the funnel, and get people pre-sold before they actually get on the sales call. Now, the funnel that we are running at before we made these changes, these optimizations, is it was a video ad. So this pretty much just like sold the opportunity, then went into a direct offer, explained what they did, how they did it, and then told people to book a call. From there, they were taken to a page that was just a headline and an application. No video, nothing else, just headline, application. After they completed that application, there was a qualification step there. If they didn't answer one of the questions within a certain range, then they were not allowed to schedule a call. They were kicked off. And then if they were qualified, they moved to the next step, which was just a headline and a scheduler. Very simple. Then they scheduled a call. Then they were taken to a confirmation page that had a video where it was literally just like, "Hey, thanks for booking your call. Make sure you're in a quiet place, ready to take notes." Pretty basic. Now, we ran this version because we wanted to gather data. We wanted to create a ton of flow, start talking to people, make sure we're bringing in the right type of person. And then once we have that information, we can see, is anything broken? Is it profitable? Is it working? Because if we start here, we can bring in a lot more volume. And if it's profitable and it's working and it's fine, then why change it? Just keep it that way. But what we found with this client, what we kind of expected too, is that they would run into some issues and we would have to go back and fix that. But now we've had a ton of calls with actual prospects who are interested in this. We're able to gather information on who they were, what have they tried, what did they want, what were their goals, what were they trying to achieve. So now in our marketing, we can speak their exact language, which is very, very, very important. You want people to hear the words that they're thinking themselves. So the key metrics before we optimize, the cost per application was about $60. We actually improved that from $80 to $48 by creating new creatives, which is why you see the average came out to be about $60, which is great. Cost per booked call about $84, which is also good. The show rate, 30% though. That's a huge problem. The close rate, 11%. That's a huge problem. The show rate should be more like 60, 70%. The close rate should be more like 20, 30% on the higher end. And obviously, in both of those metrics, we were not there. So, what this shows us is the ads are doing their job. It's the funnel and the sales process that we need to focus on fixing, which is funny enough, what we saw happen with the one client that did close, they actually went out of their way to get the information they needed to complete the whole sales process and then get on that call in the buyer's mindset. Now we needed to make it so every single person who came in through ads went through that same process, consume the same information, and are able to move forward and get on that call in the buyer's mindset. So the core funnel problem, like we talked about, the low show rate and the low close rate. But now we want to look at what is actually the reason for these problems, because there could be a lot of reasons. Maybe your reminder automations didn't fire. Is that something? If that's something, then maybe that's why your show rate's low. Like you have to look at, okay, what caused these problems? Because what you can do then, which I'll get into in just a second in this part, is you want to look for the one thing that can knock down all of the other problems. So you got to list out all the potential causes of these two metrics not being within KPI, and then see, is there one thing we can do that makes everything else, or that solves all of these other problems? So with low show rate, we took a look at it. Our automations fired properly. Everything looked good, but people weren't sold on the need to show up. They didn't know what we did really. They kind of had a vague idea. They weren't sure, but really there was no value sold to them on why they should get to that call. And they were unclear on what the offer even was. So all of these things start to add up. And if you think about it, if you schedule a call with someone, you're like, I don't really know why I even scheduled that call. Like, I'm just not going to go. It's just not worth it. I've got, all this other stuff I have to do. I've got, family, kids. I've got this show that I wanted to watch. Like there's all these other things that are more important than getting on your sales call. So that was the first thing we noticed. And then the low close rate, we had a lot of reps fielding too many, what exactly do you guys do? What is this call about again? Who are you guys? How did I find you? How did I find you? That kind of stuff. So what that shows you, again, is this is a marketing problem, not a sales problem. Because we looked at the sales call, the discovery was good. They were even pre-pitching, which is kind of an advanced sales strategy for selling the solution, which I'm going to get into in a second. But selling the solution on the sales call, where you actually sell someone on the solution, then show them how your product helps them implement that solution. And it's just way more complex. And honestly, if you can avoid that, it's much better to just handle that in your marketing. So then the salespeople have an easier job, because it's very difficult to go through that process, do the pre-pitch. It works, but it's very hard to do. So the funnel shift and fixing what mattered most. So like I said, we wanted to focus on one big thing. We didn't want to tweak like 10 small things. We wanted to fix one big thing that improved everything. So instead of getting small incremental growth, we wanted to fix one thing that shot the results up overnight. That's what we're looking for. And what that core solution was, selling the solution before the call. So the gap was the ad sold the opportunity well, but the funnel failed to explain why the client solution was the best. So what we needed to do was now create a process to make sure that happened before they got on the call. So then when they got on the call, they weren't asking like, what do you guys do again? They already knew what we did. They know how the solution works. And now they're just wondering how it will work for them specifically. That's the kind of call we want. That's someone who's in the buyer's mindset and can actually be closed by a salesperson. So our solution was creating and adding a direct video sales letter. So what you do is you insert the VSL before the scheduler. So it's on the application page, it's a headline, the video sales letter, and then the application. Same process. Now they just have this video there that they can consume before they apply, which is going to pre-sell them, sell them on the solution, and just warm them up more for that call. Now, one important thing I want to mention here is when you do this, your costs are going to go up. You're going to see higher cost per application, higher cost per call, higher cost per all these other metrics. And really, you need to be okay with that, because you have to know what is the cost we can sustain and still be profitable if all these other metrics, hit KPI. So for us in our situation with this client, we could spend 2, even 3 times as much on a cost per call, because we know the show rates are probably going to be 60%. We're probably going to close at minimum 20%, probably more like 25%. And if we hit those numbers, then we're still going to be extremely profitable, and even after a 3 times more expensive call. So really, you have to know your data, or else you won't know if you can withstand that type of increase, because it will happen. And then when you see that increase, you'll panic, you'll turn off your ads, you'll say ads are never going to work for me, and you're going to give up. That's not what we want to do. So they're going to increase that cost per call. And to kind of give you some insight into something really cool that we do when we create the video sales letters, is we actually download the call transcripts from the calls that we generated in this funnel when we spent the $4,000. So we took all those call transcripts. I can't remember. I think it was like 15 to 20, somewhere in that range. All those call transcripts, we downloaded them, converted them to a text format, and then we upload them into ChatGPT. Now, we have a specially trained ChatGPT that knows like our sales process, how we create video sales letters, all that kind of stuff. So it can help us get more accurate information. But if you just have a general ChatGPT, you'll take all those transcripts, you put them into a conversation, and say, hey, I'm trying to build a video sales letter. Can you pull out like what questions they have, what objections, what they've already tried, what worked, what didn't work, what they like, what they don't like, all of the information that's going to allow you to better explain what you do. So now ChatGPT is pulling all this information out, and that's going to allow us to create a really, really compelling video sales letter, because we can use their exact language. We know what they've tried. We know what worked, what didn't work, what they like, what they don't like, what they want, what they don't want, what their goals are, like literal numbers of, I'm trying to hit this amount of, revenue or income or passive income, or whatever the outcome is. I'm trying to save this much on taxes. Whatever your situation is, you get these exact numbers. So now when you create this video sales letter, you can create a video sales letter that's so accurate. You can literally have people getting on calls, and I've had this many times before, where they're like, man, I saw your guys' video, and it literally felt like you guys read my mind. Like you knew exactly everything you said was just like what I'm going through. And they're blown away. And because you created that video sales letter like that, and they have that thought, now they're looking at you like you really know what's going on, because you explained their situation to them better than they could explain it themselves. So that's why it's so important you use that real buyer language to create that video sales letter, because it's going to create more compelling content. So to give you a breakdown of what the structure actually looks like and what we're building in that video, first, it's going to be a quick hook. Here's what you're getting and why it matters. So then it's kind of like your high level promise. And then you go into your high level offer explanation. So what it is, how it worked, who's it for. And then you get into what's called the decision reframe. This is where really you're going to get people from education to buyer's mindset. This one piece right here. So the decision reframe is where you're explaining why everything else they've tried hasn't worked, and why your unique solution or unique mechanism is actually different. And then you support that with proof and outcomes. So what you're doing is you're creating contrast between what they've already tried and what what you do to get them the outcome. So think about it this way. If you've tried, let's say, I think I have an example here. No, but I'll use the example of back pain. So let's say you have back pain, and this is the example I always go to because it's very simple. Everyone understands it. But let's say you have back pain and you've gone to a chiropractor, you've gotten massages, you've done shots, you're considering surgery, you think maybe that's a bit too dramatic. And I come to you and you see an ad's like, hey, if you have back pain, it might be this one reason, and then you send them to this video sales letter and you start explaining to them, hey, I know you probably tried massages and chiropractic and physical therapy, and you're probably even being told that you're going to need surgery. But in reality, what those do is they all focus on the symptoms, but the actual root cause of your problem has nothing to do with your back. It has everything to do with your hamstrings. And because your hamstrings are tight and also are too weak, this is causing your back pain. I'm not a chiropractor or doctor or whatever. I don't actually know. But that shows you like what you're trying to do is say, hey, you've tried all this other stuff, but that's not actually solving the problem. The root cause of your problem is this thing over here. And if you fix this thing, it's going to solve those problems. That's why we do this, which is your unique solution, your unique mechanism that solves that problem, which is going to get rid of all these other symptoms. So you don't have to do all of that other stuff. And that's why all that other stuff in the past didn't work. And once someone has that realization, there's like that aha moment and they go, oh, that makes total sense. Now they're getting on that call with you in the buyer's mindset. They're not getting on that call saying, what do you do? Why do you do it? So that's what we're trying to create here with the decision reframe, showing the unique mechanism and then giving proof that, hey, this actually works. Here's what success looks like. Then after that, soft CTA, hey, book a call if this sounds like you and you want to, solve the problem. So that's the structure of it. It should not be long. It should only be like a few minutes, like 6 minutes max. Maybe a little bit longer, shorter the better. You just want to get right to the point, like boom, 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 hit them with the hook, explain how it works, get into the decision reframe, explain your unique mechanism, give proof, and get to the CTA. The shorter, the more punchier, the more powerful, the better. So I kind of just went through an example of this, but when we go and we get the transcripts from the sales calls, we're actually able to take that information to create this decision reframe in a way like they're going to be mind blown, because you're literally going to say, this is what you probably tried, because you've had 15 to 20 people tell you, hey, this is what I've tried. None of it worked because of this. I didn't like it because of this. This was a problem. This was a problem. Now we can say, hey, you probably tried X, Y, and Z, and here's why that failed. And you start listing off all the stuff, like what they say, like the reasons they don't think it worked. And then you say, instead, we do unique method, which fixes this kind of stuff, which is the core problem. And that builds belief before they hit the calendar page. So you're pre-selling them on the solution. So when they get to the call, they're ready to buy. Now, the expected funnel impact we believe this is going to have once we make this change is we're going to have higher show rates. Now they're going to want to show up because they're interested. They're in the buyer's mindset. We're going to have improved close rates because they're already sold on how this works. Now the salesperson just needs to focus on how do we show them that this is the service that we offer is the right one for them to implement this. And the other thing is, when you create the decision reframe, no one else is talking about it, so they can't go anywhere else. So they kind of have to buy your product, which is another really amazing thing about this whole process. We're going to get better ROI, so higher quality calls, more likely to convert. But one important thing is we know this because we also know our numbers. We know we can accept some higher costs because we know some of these other metrics are probably going to go up. We know the ballpark ranges of what they're probably going to hit based on historicals. So you have to know your numbers. And if you know your numbers, then you can make moves like this. And you're not focused on just driving down the cost per call all the time. You're looking at driving down the cost to acquire a client. So some additional improvements we're also going to be rolling out after we do the video sales letter is going to be email and confirmation content. So again, we're going to get all this information from these sales calls transcripts, so objections, questions, concerns, all this stuff. And you can't really handle it all in the video sales letter. So what you do is you start hitting them with it in email. There are content remarketing strategies that you can use, and you want to start answering some of those other questions. So you get people on the call and they're like, I really don't have any other questions other than like, I just want to see how you guys, like how this would work for me. I'm really excited. Like maybe they have one small question, but for the most part, they just got, years worth, not probably more like 3 to 6 months worth of nurturing content that they would usually go through, like if they were in your warm audience on your YouTube or whatever, maybe you have a book or whatever the case is, 3 to 6 months, and we're crunching down to like 7 days, 3 days, 4 days, 2 days, 1 day. Like we would want to hammer them with everything that they have. So then, or all the questions they have. So then they don't have those questions on the sales call, like just answer them before the sales call. So you're able to do some objection handling stuff there. You can actually tailor the nurture to people based on what they're interacting with. And then you want to scale it on the back end. This is going to be other monetization stuff. There's setters that we could use. We can improve and scale the sales team. But all of that comes after the core funnel starts converting. And we see those improvements in the VSL because you just want to do one thing at a time. So the goal for this client is to go from 300 a day to 1,000 per day in spend. That's going to get us, with that amount of spend, I don't know why this says 15K a day. This just say 1,000 a day. That's going to be 30,000 a month in ad spend. And from there, we should be getting at least a 4, 5, or 6x return on ad spend. If we get that, then we're going to be hitting those, the 50K, getting close to that 100K a month. So that's really how it works. And it all works because we're going to be building that belief pre-call, because we're not just running ads, we're building belief before the sales call even starts. So they're not in education mode, they're in a buyer's mindset. So that's what we're going to do to get them up to $1,000 a day in ad spend, 100K in revenue. And that's how we think about data, how we optimize, and how you could potentially make your funnel even more profitable.